So I think for him, it's all been a positive experience. And I think if we hadn't done the Now program, I can't imagine any of this would be possible, because with the book, it started off as a writing assignment, and previous Jacob would not have written more than the bare minimum requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he would have written very short sentences with almost no detail. He probably would have gotten a very average grade, and that would have been that. But for this, he wrote way more than the minimum requirement with all sorts of detail.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dyslexia Success Stories. And this one is a phenomenal success story. And you're not going to believe, and I'm not going to tell you up front, although you might have seen it in the discussion section, about what happened after this young boy built really strong reading skills. But our goal today is let's hear how the story unfolds. His mom's going to join us and kind of tell us the story that is familiar to some of you. It may not be familiar to others. And let's learn more about what's possible with dyslexia that turns dyslexia from a weakness into a strength. So who's going to join us is Kim. And Kim, welcome to Dyslexia Success Stories.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. And I just can't wait. Sorry. Your son, who's dyslexic and has struggled for most of his life with reading problems, is now a book author and has a book selling in the Amazon store. Really?
He does. He even actually has a few books in local bookstores here in New York City.
Wow. So he went and, pitched the book and he got a few stores to carry it?
Exactly. Yeah. He helped my husband and I. We've been really supporting this for him because he's had so much confidence and he feels so proud of himself that we're full in. Our other kids now want to write stories too, but no, on the weekends we'll look up bookstores, we'll drive around. He walks in with his pitch sheet, he talks to people, and then we kind of see what happens.
And we have to remind people, Jacob's 11, right?
He's 11, yep. He'll be going into 6th grade this year.
Okay. And confidence, is this something new for him, or has he always been a confident kid?
He started as a very confident young child, and then I think he lost a lot of confidence probably around 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. 4th grade was probably a low for him.
Wow.
And then since developing these skills and really believing in himself, his confidence has just soared.
Fantastic. So I think that's a great example for parents to understand a terminology that we use, that we say it's competence that builds confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started school a confident kid, doing well, probably semi-successful, but then as the reading skills get more and more of a demand increasing, and he had a history that his reading wasn't keeping up with his IQ, and you're saying that's what then saw the parallel of his confidence going down when he didn't have the skills, then you start feeling less capable and less confident in yourself. Is that a good depiction of how it was for Jacob?
I'd say so. I think in the very beginning, when it's just sight words and the nonsense words, he was very good at that. And then when it started getting into the spelling test, things you couldn't just memorize because there's too much to memorize.
Yeah.
He really started to feel less for himself because he was consistently failing. And then it got really hard to study because it was too hard for him. He didn't know how. And I'm an educated person, but I'm not an educator. I'm not a teacher.
Right.
I've taught adults, but teaching children, especially your own, is a whole different animal that I'm not good at it.
Well, and to be fair to you, most kids do not want mom to be their teacher. They want you to be unconditional love, support, fun, safety, security of home environment, because teaching comes across as well as I'm not, that is a skill I don't have yet. I don't have something yet. And they don't want to disappoint. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're struggling to learn how to read, that can make it really feel like you're disappointing a parent, even if you are trying to be the most supportive parent and not making a big deal out of the struggles. When you're a really bright kid like Jacob, you can tell when it's not going well.
Mm-hmm. And it just affected his whole personality because he was just believing that he wasn't smart. He couldn't do it. It wasn't possible. And then it was harder, I think, too, because I do have other children, and his younger brother, he's exceptionally smart as well. And he's always coming home with 100%, and he doesn't have to try as hard.
Wow.
So I think when Jacob started seeing that, then he really started to feel the competition and being like, well, he can do it. I can't do it. It must be me. I must just be stupid.
Yeah, which is the absolute most incorrect assumption or conclusion possible. But you can understand how that might feel like that to Jacob, because especially when you've got the younger brother outperforming you. And you're like, wow, there must be something wrong with me because I can't do this. And especially when Jacob, as a bright kid, can recognize even friends in his classroom that they're performing better than he's performing. And he probably knows pretty well that he's pretty smart and they're not as smart as he is, but they, are getting better marks, papers, or betting scores on the spelling tests. And that is a real challenge to overcome. And even when mom and dad say to the child, you're smart, we love you, you've got a good brain, you're great at this, the kids know that something's not quite right when they can't read well.
Exactly. And he's always been a great conversationalist. He'll talk to you about all sorts of things, and he has a great memory, and he knows a lot about all sorts of different topics that I learned things from him all the time. It was just whenever he had anything that had to go from his thoughts to writing it, it was too hard for him and he couldn't even start.
Right.
So even like doing a math test where you had to explain your answer, he just couldn't do it. Right. So it started spilling into not just English and reading grades, but into his math grades, because he could only answer half the problem. He'd get the answer right, but he couldn't fully answer the question. And that's when we really knew, okay, we have to do something, because it's not getting better. It's actually spilling into other parts of his life.
Right.
And we need to do something when he's younger, versus if he keeps feeling this way and things keep getting harder, it's going to be a bigger bridge to try to gap.
Absolutely. The bigger gap, the larger amount of work it's going to take, and the more emotional struggle and the more mental health, consequences there are for letting or seeing a child struggle for 1, 3, 5, 10 years. So fortunate for him, you guys are proactive, because you were working with his school. You were trying to get him services. You were trying to get him special help. And tell us about that. How is that working out?
It was not working out well. His school believed that because he was very smart and he compensated in other areas, he didn't really have a problem that they could deal with, because there was other kids who didn't test well, who didn't have the conversation skills, who couldn't do math. And for them, he was making it through. And comparatively, when we would have meetings with his teachers at conferences or with the principal, they'd say, oh, well, he's not the only one. There's 8 or 9 other children in his class. They're failing spelling too. Like it was supposed to make us feel better. No, that doesn't make me feel better at all, that he's one of many having this pretty profound problem. And you don't think you should change what you're doing. It was really disheartening, because I always believed that the educators had his best interest at heart. But then it really became clear the older he got that the state tests and things like that really directed the teaching and the subjects and what they focused on. And I think that's really hard. It's not necessarily the teacher's fault. I think it's a system problem. He's had teachers who I really believe cared about him, but they just didn't have the resources to go back and teach him phonics. I'll never forget meeting with one of his teachers, and I brought up, well, he's failing spelling tests. And she was like, well, I'm not responsible for teaching spelling. So I said, oh, well, are the spelling tests graded? Is it part of his report card? She said, oh, yes. And I said, I don't understand. You're grading him on something that's part of his test. It's required by the district, but you're not responsible for teaching it? How is that? She's like, well, parents were. I'm like, yeah, I'll work with them. I'll do all kinds of homework with them. But in the end, I am not an educator. I've not been trained in this. I feel like if it's something required by the district, you should be required to teach it.
Wow. I have to say, Kim, that's the first time in 30 plus years I've heard an explanation being, well, I don't teach that subject.
No, I'm not responsible. They should have done that in earlier grades. Well, clearly they didn't.
Right. And so it
So what are we
still
going to
needs to be
do?
done.
Yeah.
The
We can't
spelling
just skip
is
it.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when they started giving like, oh, well, we put speech to text on his laptop, on his Chromebook. That should help. And they were so proud. They thought we'd be so happy. But we were really upset because that's
Yeah.
not solving the problem. If anything, it further validated to him that you can't do this. You need the special program to make it through.
Wow. And that's the absolute wrong message we want to be giving someone. We absolutely want them to feel that they can do it, they have the capability to do it, and that we are teaching them how to do it. So that's the big challenge with things like assistive technology, or people saying, well, AI is going to do that for us, in the next couple of years. So we won't have to read anymore. AI will just tell us what the book said, or we won't have to spell anymore. I'm like, but why would you not want to have those skills if you could? Because you can actually do more on your own without AI, and do more in different aspects of your life. And reading and spelling actually empower the brain with more knowledge, more reasoning, more problem solving. And they're also part of functional communication skills. And I don't think we want AI speaking for you. So you want to try to build these skills together. So yeah, some folks are really excited about, scanning pens that will read for you. I find those things to be horrific. I find those things to be, now, if the child has a deficit like blindness, and we can't change blindness, something that might read a book for somebody that's blind, that'd be great, because we're not going to replace their vision.
No.
But dyslexia is not like blindness. It is not a hardwired deficit that cannot be improved. And sadly, Kim, many adults think it actually is hardwired, and they actually think that dyslexia never goes away. And they don't understand that the difference in their experiences versus your son's is they never got appropriate, systematic, scientific instruction that built speech skills first, then the letter skills second, then the reading skills, then the spelling skills. They did not get the proper instruction. That's why they've had a lifelong struggle, not because there's something inherently neuroscientifically, neuropsychologically speaking, as a neuropsychologist, that is hardwired in their brain that cannot be changed.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I feel very grateful that now he's learned the skills and he's able to overcome and believes in himself.
That's fantastic. Take back a little bit, back to, it was May of 2024 when he started working online. How did he feel about it in the first month?
He was very hesitant. He was very resistant. We may have had a deal if he tried it at least. Then there was a big beanbag chair he really wanted. And I said, okay, if you try your hardest, we can talk about this beanbag chair.
Nice.
I think Costco gets us a lot of times, but he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to believe he had a problem.
Right.
He didn't want to put in the work, I think, because he didn't think it would help. So at first it was a bit of a struggle, especially being every day. And we, at that time, lived in a neighborhood with a lot of kids and everyone played outside after school and things like that. And he really wanted to participate. And I was like, look, it's less than an hour. Let's just do it and see what happens.
Yeah. And the beginning part of the program is the most bizarre thing most kids might ever experience, because there's no letters, there's no reading, there's no traditional reading instruction. And our best analogy for kids, and I just saw the other day that a new version of this movie is just coming out this year, which makes me laugh, is there's another version of Karate Kid. And in that original version, the karate sensei is making the kid wax his car. And the kid's like, I'm not here to wax your car. And he's like, wax on, wax off. And he's showing him the moves to put the wax on. And the kid thinks it has nothing to do with karate, but the expert knows I'm building skills that I will then later use for you to build karate skills. And then that became more clear later on. Is that a clear analogy for what might have felt like initially for Jacob, with these crazy looking mouth pictures, and they're asking about how his mouth was moving, his lips, his tongue. And some kids actually go tell their parents, they think I can't speak sounds. Mom, really? What is this program? They think I actually don't know how to say but.
Yeah, I think so. And I think he just went through the motions for a little while and hoped that all right, I just want to get my beanbag chair. I'll just do what mom says. We'll try it. But I I think he was just willing to sit there and go through it. But I think he didn't really see that it was going to help.
Right. And what's your first recollection of you saw something was changing?
I think it really, because we started it pretty late in the school year. Then we moved and we started school here. And it was when he first got into school for the 5th grade year, and he could actually write. And in his homework, he could write homework assignments. And he was like, okay, maybe this is making a difference. And he really liked his instructors that he had. He had 2 main instructors, one before the summer, one during the summer, and then the same one after. And he really connected with them. He really liked them. He started looking forward to his sessions. Even in the summer when it meant coming home early from the pool when his siblings got to stay, he would come home and do it. And I think he really liked it. He was always sad when he had a substitute teacher, happy if it was a sub that he hadn't seen in a while. So once he started feeling a difference and things felt easier for him, especially when he started school again, he was like, wow, okay, maybe you were right. Maybe this is helping.
Maybe it just wasn't about the beanbag chair.
Maybe it wasn't about the beanbag chair. Yeah.
And that's quite a recognition on his part at age 10, 11, that these skills are changing. This is actually working for me. And that, competence is building, which means the confidence is building, which also then ties into motivation. Because when you're becoming more competent and you're driving more confidence, you're more motivated to do more because you're a driven kid who wants to excel. And just to give the audience a perspective, we do some very basic pre-screening when you start with the nowprograms.com to build these skills. It's not formalized testing. It's not diagnostic testing. We just give them some paragraphs to read that are different grade levels. The first paragraph they gave him to read was below a 1st grade level, just like a pre-primer reading. He scored 88% correct. That basically would mean that he's not at a reading level commensurate with that grade. He's not even reading at a kindergarten level yet. And at that time, he's already 10. And when we finished the program, and he did about 220 hours, and sometimes it's 180, sometimes it's 140, sometimes it's 220. It varies based on how quickly, how efficiently the child moves through the program. And we take every child, especially when they're above average IQ like Jacob is. Our goal is to take him 1 to 2 grades above their current grade level. Well, he went higher than that. So the last book he read near the end of his sessions was around grade level 8.1 and 8.5. And at that time, what grade would he have been in? Because that would be
5th grade.
Yeah, so that's May of 24, early 24, and he's still in 5th grade. So he's now actually reading over 3 grade levels above his current grade level with 97 to 100% accuracy. And these aren't like 3 sentence paragraphs. These are like 300-word paragraphs, 500-word paragraphs. He's reading them. The strengths are there. The skills are there. We also measured a really important foundational skill that most parents don't understand is the driving force of building reading skills. And it's called phonological awareness. It's your ability to perceive sounds in words. Now, I don't know if Jacob did this, but you can tell me. Early on, when you have weaker phonological awareness, you're also likely to make some mistakes in speaking. You might mispronounce a word, or you might substitute one word for the other. A common example would be to say, he said to you, "Mom, I want to be pacifically clear." And you're like, okay, that's an ocean. I think it's Pacific. And he might drop a sound or change a sound. Was that ever present for Jacob growing up?
All the time.
Okay. And so that's what we say is the soft sign, or the more easily seen sign without even reading, that phonological system is not strong enough yet, because he's doing one of 5 things. He's leaving out sounds that do belong, and he doesn't know it. He's adding sounds that don't belong, and he doesn't know it. He's reversing 2 sounds, like switching them around, and he won't know that he did it. And he'll repeat a sound twice. It's only supposed to be there once. Or he might substitute one sound in place of another. So when you say Pacific instead of specific, you've dropped a sound and you don't realize you've missed one of the sounds in the words. And so we measured that skill with him with a formalized, standardized test, and he scored about the 47th percentile. Well, that's not severely impaired. That's average range. But his IQ is not the 47th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, so you really want this phonological skill to be on par with a child's IQ, and you want it to be rock solid strong. And he had some phonological skills for small one-syllable words, but he really fell apart when you got to 2, 3, 4, and 5-syllable longer words, which tells us it's not fully developed, and it will hinder his progress in reading and spelling and in his accuracy of his speaking skills. At the end of the program, did they tell you where he got his phonological processing to?
They did. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I know it was a huge jump, though.
I've got it right here on the screen, so let me switch over to it. He went from the 47th percentile all the way up to, oops, I lost it here, the 79th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's in the top 20, basically, instead of being in just below the top 50. Now he's at a much more high average range of phonological processing.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know that he's got this strength, this skill that will be there lifelong, and odds are it's just going to keep getting stronger and stronger. It's not going to be something that we have to do a booster with. We're never going to do more phonological training with him.
Mm-hmm.
And the best analogy is your other kids. They built phonological processing just because you guys spoke to them and because they were exposed to reading, exposed to spelling, and their brain picked up all that exposure and experience and built really strong phonological processing. And nobody had to do any formal instruction to it other than there was formal reading instruction. But you actually built their phonological processing in their first 5 years of life. And you built it just by talking to them and them talking back to you. And so now that Jacob's got that skill and he can read books, 6th, 7th, 8th grade books, now we expect to see his vocabulary is going to accelerate even more because he's now got this phonological system that also it stores words for new words that you're learning. And it helps you retrieve those words and you access the meaning combined with the words to be able to share and use those new words in speaking, talking, or even in your writing as well. So when do you think Jacob first noticed that things were changing for him, that he was getting stronger?
I think it's when he started school this year and he went back into the academics. And it was teachers that didn't know him. It was students that didn't know him. He had a fresh start, which I think was really great for him because although he really liked his school, I think by the time we left, the administration was not our biggest fans because we really advocated very hard for him. And I think they didn't necessarily like that. So that was really, I think it was hard because Jacob, he's a great kid. He's super nice. He's super kind. He's the number one helper at school. He loves to bring papers down to the office or help somebody carry something heavy. So I think for that, the schools usually like him. But then when we started not just doing what the school wanted us to do, I think that made it a little difficult. So it was nice to start fresh this year and he had a new opportunity to show off his new skills.
That's fantastic. That's just a very fortuitous sequence of events that he just comes in like any other kid.
Mm-hmm.
If nobody knew that he struggled before, then he doesn't have to worry about that.
No, and nobody had any expectations or not, because he wasn't in a huge school at our previous place. And I think by the time he got to the grade, they're like, oh, it's Jacob. He has trouble doing this. He has trouble doing that. So it was kind of nice that nobody had any opinion or expectation.
Right.
We're also in a really diverse school system where there's a lot of kids who are English as a second language and a lot of really high achieving kids and not achieving kids. It's a much bigger school system. So I think there's a much bigger mix, which I think has been really great too.
Yeah. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about the data we looked at before his reading intervention with that Now Foundations program and afterwards was they track his ability to read books. And when he hits about 95% accurate at a grade level, we raise the grade level. Then when he hits 95% accurate, we raise the grade level and raise the grade level. And so we got that in the instructional side up to about a grade, 8, 8.5. But we repeated the book reading screening that we do. And in the book reading screening, they had him reading books that went from that pre-primer, which this time, instead of getting 88% correct, he's 100% correct. but he kept getting 100%. And then he got 100% correct at grade level 2 and grade level 3 and 98% at grade level 4 and 100% at grade level 5 and 100% at grade level 6 and 99% at 7 and 96% at 8 and 95% at 9 and 97% accurate in a 10th grade book. And it's about 100 words in the paragraph, but he read them 97% correct. And that just tells us he's rock solid now in those reading skills, and he can read whatever he needs to read in front of him. And he doesn't need accommodations for it. He doesn't need a scanning pen. He doesn't need supports. I can't stop hearing people. Well, I hope to someday stop hearing this, but I don't ever stop hearing people talk about if we get dyslexics the right supports. It's like crutches that they're going to need the rest of their life. What's your expectation for Jacob? What's his reading looking like going forward for you? And what do you think is going to happen with his academics?
Yeah, I think reading level, this is one of the first summer he's really enjoyed his summer reading list.
Wow.
We went out and we got some new books for him and his younger brother. And he's reading the books, and they're not just, he was really into graphic novels, and I think a lot of kids are.
Yeah.
But after a while, I'm like, okay, I can't look at one more of these graphic novels. Like, I don't get it. Can we read a book with chapters and words and paragraphs and proper language? So he's really doing a great job. Barnes & Nobles has a great program where if you read 8 books, you can go in and exchange your reading list for a free book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a free program. It's really awesome. So he's working on his summer reading, and they're all age-appropriate books, and he's enjoying them, which is awesome. And it also pushes his younger brother. He's like, oh, I want to read those books too. So, which is good for him as someone who's very achieving, to be a little challenged sometimes and do things that are hard. Yeah. So for Jacob, it's incredible to see what he'll do now versus not even just simple things like the other day, they, an activity they did being on summer break, they made books, and he wrote a little paper book, 10 steps how to draw a cat. And he narrated it, and it's spelled correctly, and it's legible.
Wow.
He's like, whew,
and he spelled it? He spelled it, or spell check spelled it?
No, it's handwritten.
Ah, okay.
He handwrote it.
No spell check for that.
No spell check for that. And then when you talk about academic grades, this was the best grade year Jacob has ever had. Wow. He didn't have any academics that were below. Everything was either meeting or exceeding grade level standards, which has been really empowering for him to see that on paper, to be like, wow, I can do it. And I did it.
Yeah.
He had one of the highest levels for English in his class. And then they do iReady testing for his school, and he scored incredibly well. Wow. And I think for him, that was just really validating, because to see it on paper, I think for him as a very calculating individual, he's like, okay, this is validating. And nobody did those tests for him.
Right.
Nobody helped. He did it all on his own. So I think he's going into 6th grade with a new level of confidence that I'm hoping he can just go with. And his school has been nothing but support about his book. They've put it out in the newsletter to the other teachers. Several teachers have purchased it and asked for his signature.
Oh, nice.
He even got invited to go to Career Day. And he set up a booth at Career Day. He was the only kid. And he presented to kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd graders. Wow. And since we've seen some of these kids in the neighborhood, and they've been like, oh, that's Jacob. He's the author. And he's like, I think I'm famous. I'm like, yeah, it's the first step, is being local famous, having people recognize you, and talking about it to people. Like, we'll go to a soccer match for his brother, and people will be like, oh, you're Jacob. He's like, oh yeah, I'm an author. I wrote a book. Like, he has a really positive way to describe himself, and it's a huge conversation starter with people. So for him, socially, academically, and just personally, this has just been a huge, important part of his life. It was interesting, a few months ago, he was like, I really don't know how to manage how people are treating me. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, people, they believe in me, and they think I'm smart, and people are asking me about my book and how I did it. And he's like, I'm not used to being treated like this. And
Wow.
I said, isn't that nice, Jacob? That people are asking you about your experience and how did you do it and asking for help. Doesn't that feel really good? He was like, it does. And it was just so different for him because he's not gotten to be in that role before of the kid to ask when you're having trouble with something. So I think for him, it's all been a positive experience. And I think if we hadn't done the Now program, I can't imagine any of this would be possible because with the book, it started off as a writing assignment, and previous Jacob would not have written more than the bare minimum requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he would have written very short sentences with almost no detail. He probably would have gotten a very average grade, and that would have been that. But for this, he wrote way more than the minimum requirement with all sorts of detail. His Now instructor, Bryn, she'd save some time at the end and he would read his story to her, what he added.
Wow.
And he really looked forward to it. So
And
he
to
just
give the
kept on
audience,
moving on it.
yeah, and to give the audience some perspective, most folks don't understand we did not do 3 to 7 years of tutoring to change Jacob's reading skills.
No.
It was actually 11 months.
Mm-hmm.
So from the month that he started to the month he finished, because he started at the beginning of the month and finished at the end of the month, it was literally 11 months of instruction. He's doing about 20 sessions. On average, it's 21.65 because some months have 4 weeks, some months have 5 weeks. But total was 220 hours of instruction. And he now is reading 2 to 3 grade levels or more above his grade level because he has the reading skills. And like you've said, he also now has the spelling skills, which is why he could write a book as well. And that's what most people find is hardest to believe about our company, about the nowprograms.com. Our number one pushback, Kim, is sounds too good to be true.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we didn't know what to expect. I actually found Now program through a Facebook group I'm in, Pharmacist Moms group. I'm a pharmacist by trade, and people were, it's not an uncommon problem, I think, especially for this age group, considering they didn't have a typical early education experience.
Right.
You know, and to no fault of their own, no fault of the schools. I think homeschooling and virtual school went from being very uncommon to being everybody very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think everybody did the best they could do at the time, but who knew what the consequences were going to be? So we started looking into Now, and it seemed like the most realistic thing for us to do. I wasn't sure how we would do doing online tutoring, but it seemed like our best option and certainly better than just doing what we were doing, which wasn't making a difference.
Yes. And it's interesting because unfortunately, many parents had an exposure to online that was with their kids, which is not a pleasant experience. It was like watching lectures online for hours at a time. And no parent likes to be lectured to for hours at a time. We also know lecture is the most ineffective teaching method ever. You only retain about 10 to 20% on average of what you just have someone be regurgitating out to you. And yet that was what instruction turned out to be for most kids, especially during those COVID eras when schools were closed. So when we tell people the nowprograms.com is an online edtech interactive, they still don't believe us to understand that, no, it's very much engaging. There's a lot of dialogue back and forth. The instructors are highly trained in a Socratic type of questioning, how to ask questions, to lead comparisons, to lead discoveries, to lead reasoning, problem solving. You're doing a lot of verbal thinking about sounds and about how words work. And then you're really beginning to carry out these actions with different activities. And so was there anything that particular that helped you choose Now programs? Because let's be honest, there's about 1,000 different online companies today. There's more of an opening every day. There's more that someone says, like, I was a dyslexic adult and I've made up my own program now. And there's a difference between programs that have been scientifically tested and proven to be effective versus programs that someone has just made up and they think it helps. How, you as a parent, did you make that determination?
I think for us, it was, for me especially, I really liked that it did have science behind it. As someone with a science background, that's something I can really understand. and know how important it is, because we thought about hiring a tutor quite a few times, but then it's like, how do you know if they're good? Just because you have the background doesn't mean it's something that's going to make a difference.
Right.
And I ended up liking that it was online. My husband travels a lot. He's in the Army, so often I'm single parenting by myself, and it's hard to get someone somewhere every day and then figure out what am I going to do with the other kids. And I also work full time. So logistically, I did end up liking that it was online. And I liked that it had science behind it. And then on that Facebook group, there were a few other families that had success with it. So it seemed like one of the better options. There was also really good customer service when I signed up. I thought there was real people who called me to talk about it, talk about the options. It felt more personal. Whereas now a lot of times you get a generic email and it just doesn't feel the same, I think, as a real person.
I agree 100%. And as the CEO of the company, I can tell you we're not replacing those people with AI. I really don't need you talking to an AI bot to just give you factual answers. We want one of our intake staff understanding you, understanding the child, understanding all the dynamics, caring enough to really listen to those dynamics and figure out, okay, what can we make sure we do to get the best fit for the student plus the instructor, because that's part of the formula as well. It's not only just the effective program, that's a really important piece, but it's also the instructor, their training, their expertise, their ability to connect and interact with the child online. And so the team who makes the initial selection on which instructor we're going to assign to your child knows about the kid, and is making a well-informed and as close to personal as possible choice of which instructor we might think would be the best to start with.
Yeah, and I think we definitely experienced that. Jacob really liked his tutors. He enjoyed spending time with them. He felt like they cared. At one point, we had to have a meeting because he told his instructor that he was purposely going slow because he didn't want it to end. And I was like, Jacob, I appreciate you like this. However, you can't just go slow because you don't want it to end.
At least he's a sweet, honest kid.
He is. He's too smart. That's the problem, because he was like, oh, wow, I'm really cruising. Because every time we got a progress report, I say, hey, look what you did this month. Like, look how much you grew.
Yeah.
And after a while, he started thinking, wow, I'm going to stop doing this if I keep growing. And I was like, I know you like it, but wouldn't you also rather do something else after school?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Have time with friends.
Exactly. Or do a different activity, because right now this is your extracurricular activity. This is your choice. I can't squeeze anything else during the week for you. This is it.
Right. Wow. I have to say, that's the first kid who's actually realized I should slow down. I'm going to stay longer. We did have another little boy who was 7. And like Jacob, he was really bright.
Yeah.
But he hadn't thought ahead that finish means I don't see my tutor Michael anymore. And so after his last session, his sister brought out the cake and the mom came out singing and he burst into tears.
Yeah.
And you're like, why are you crying? He's like, I that was my last session with Michael. And they're like, yeah, great job. He's like, no, I like Michael. Like, yeah, he was nice. And he's like, no, I'm not going to see him again. And he was sad about that, because we want our instructors to be caring, engaging. They've got to be part of that motivational energy, because initially, like Jacob and you described, he wasn't that motivated about doing this. He wasn't going to be that optimistic about it working, because he'd had other programs that hadn't worked much. So why should he believe this one's going to work? And you have to be that kind of positive energy of give it a shot. Okay, let's get a little competition in here. Or if it's not competition that drives motivation, the instructors are trained in how to use some kind of content. Like if Hello Kitty's a motivator, we're doing some stuff with Hello Kitty along with the instruction. You got to build that mood, that engagement, because it also drives attention, focus, motivation, which drives accelerated efficiency of learning.
Yeah, no. When now ended, we were all kind of like, oh, what do we do now? And there was a few days he'd rush him after school and be like, I'm ready. And then be like, oh, wait a minute. I
Wow.
don't have to do this. Like it was a transition because we had done it for almost a year
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
just part of our normal everyday routine. We
That's,
just did it. Sometimes if we were making up sessions, he would do 2 and he never complained,
wow.
which was something because sometimes he's a complainer, like like us all, I think. But no, he'd be like, okay, I'm doing 2 sessions today. We went on vacation in February. We went to Amsterdam. We came back on that Friday. He had to do a session. I was like, sorry for your luck. We just got off a big plane ride, but here you go. You gotta do it.
Let's get it done.
Let's do it. And he was like, okay.
Well, let me put his book up on the screen because we want to help promote this
Yeah,
powerful thing that
definitely.
Jacob has done for our viewers. This is Jacob's book. Now, was he 10 or 11 when he wrote this?
He started it when he was 10. This was a September school assignment, and then it was officially published when he was 11.
And tell us about the assignment. What was the assignment that we clearly can see he went way beyond the assignment? Because I'm sure the assignment wasn't write a book and sell it on Amazon.
No, the assignment was develop a character and write an adventure, write a short story. So his story, it's about a cat named Pickles who lives in New York City, very much like Jacob does. And he goes on an adventure after his brother dares him to do something he shouldn't. And his adventure back home. So it's definitely, I think, a relatable story. If there's anyone out there with 2 boy siblings who maybe sometimes egg each other on to do things they shouldn't. But I don't know, it's a nice story. I really enjoy reading it. It's great grade level, I think, for maybe anyone. We have it rated from 6 to 12. It's not too terribly long, about 150 pages.
Nice.
It's a nice story, and it gives a nod to where he currently lives, and he loves cats. So I particularly like this pigeon on the front. He looks very distressed to me, so he makes me laugh.
The cat looks like, let's play. The pigeon's like, yikes.
Yeah, exactly. And then in the back, that's the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's been a really great experience to do this. It's been just so great to see him be so proud about something he's done, because it's been quite a while since he's felt that way about himself.
Absolutely. And this is such a major accomplishment because he wrote it, didn't need technology to write it for him, didn't have AI write it for him, didn't have spell check write it for him. Doesn't mean it might not have looked up a spell word here or there, but he could phonetically spell most all words. He's got a nice description on the back about the story, about what's happening. And then, here it is on the Amazon store. And you've got, it's selling there on Amazon. And then you've even got reviews, giving him 5-star reviews for his story. And not just one, but several 5-star reviews and 4-star reviews. And so there's just a lot of great feedback, a lot of great support of, here's a 10-year-old who by behavior, by struggle, would say had dyslexia because he couldn't read on grade level. And when we started with him, he was reading at about below a 1st grade level. And when we finished with him 11 months later, he's reading above the 8th grade level. And that's only in 11 months of work. And everyone here is appreciating how he took his story and turned the whole thing into a new book. And so I think it's just fantastic to be able to say to people, go get your kids a copy of Pickles in the Big City and The Very Bad Dare. And as the youngest of 5 children, I can say, oh, yeah, those dares happened all the time.
Yeah. And I think it's been great. He's working on a 2nd book. It's not just a one and done for him. He's already thinking like, I really enjoyed this process. I think he really liked feeling special. And so he's writing his 2nd book, and it's inspired his siblings. His younger brother is writing a book. His little sister is writing a book with my husband because she's 5. So for her, she's more the idea girl. But it's great that not only did he do something for himself, but it's been great for other kids, for his siblings. I have a lot of friends that have kids in similar ages, and their kids have been really impressed, being like, he actually wrote this? I'm like, yes. These are all Jacob's ideas. These are all Jacob's words. Did we help him? Yes. Have I ever written a book? No. It took a long time, and he kept on it. He was dedicated to doing it. I wasn't sure when he said he wanted to write a book. I was like, okay, like I didn't know if it was really going to happen, but I'm so glad it did.
And did he say 150 pages long?
It's 140. let's see.
Yeah. And did he tell you he was going to write that much? Or that's how it
142.
evolved?
No, I think we really didn't want it to be a giant book, number
Yeah.
one, because we wanted it to be, he likes to say it was written by a kid for kids.
Yeah.
And I know, like, my kids, they don't often go into the library or into the bookstore and try to pick the biggest book, especially if you're younger, or maybe you're just getting away from reading all the graphic novels, because there are no illustrations in this book. There's a little illustration on the beginning of each chapter.
Okay.
So we wanted it to feel attainable. I didn't want other kids to get it and be like, this is too long, because that's definitely happened to us, where I've brought books home and he started them and then been like, I can't keep up with it. And I wanted it to be something that didn't take forever for him to finish. I really wanted him to see the idea of a project, work hard on it, and then see the end. So where it ended, I think it felt like we told a beginning, a middle, and an end. He found some conflict, because I think every good action book needs a little bit of conflict, a little bit of action. And then he wrapped it up. And gave a little room for Pickles to do other things in the future if he wants more adventure.
If he's so inclined to write book 2.
Yeah, and he is. He's working on it. He's working on book 2, so more to come from Pickles and Jacob. I think he was really impressed too, because the more he learns about other authors, the more he sees that they've overcome some adversity too. So some of his favorite authors, he found out, wow, they were dyslexic, or they had ADHD, or they had these other problems, and they found a way to overcome it. Because it's like we tell him, there is no perfect. You just do the best you can do, and you work hard. And if you're proud of yourself, then that's really all that matters.
100%. So I just can't tell you how thrilled I am to say my company got to help change a boy's reading skills. And now Jacob is taking that into his own career choice of book authorship, marketing the book to local bookstores in New York City, of all places. That's probably a pretty tough crowd to be approaching cold. And
he carries around with him when he goes out places. He brings one of his flyers. And if we go into the gift shop, he just goes and talks to people. Like, I was not a confident child. There's no way I would have done this. So I'm just infinitely impressed with him that not only did he finish this, but he keeps working on it, because I think he's realized, like, in the beginning, a lot of our family bought it, so we had a lot of sales, but then he realized that if he wants to keep getting the word out, he's going to have to put in some continued effort. So it continues to be a learning experience, and we've talked a lot about how to price things and profits and splitting your profit with your publisher and the cost of marketing. Marketing is often not free.
100%.
So he's learning a lot of different skills and different ideas, and then what he's going to do with his earnings. Talking about learning how to be investments and savings, and it's okay to spend money on things that you want too, because you did this big thing, and you should get to treat yourself sometimes too. So it's just been a great experience, and honestly, I can't imagine what he would be doing if we hadn't found this program. So we are very grateful.
Thank you so much, Kim. And I think I want to end with one topic, which is having a science background that you have. It's very easy for you to understand that my team and I worked very hard for 15 years publishing all these research studies. These are not small studies. Each of the studies that we had to get funded, it's like about a 600-page grant that gets vetted by a panel of national experts. They rank it and rate it based on its scientific rigor, its outcomes, and it's really only about the top 3% that get funded. And we didn't get funded once, we got funded multiple times to do these what's called randomized controlled trials. And from the pharmaceutical industry, here's a piece that you may not know, but you'll appreciate as well, which is most all medications are going through randomized controlled trials. You'll know a medicine called Nurtec ODT. And Nurtec is a migraine medication. And my brother Charlie invented Nurtec. So he is the rat daddy scientist. I'm the human brain scientist. He went from rat to human. I went from human to human. But he spent 30 years of his life doing all the research to build the molecule that then later became Nurtec ODT. And so when you have that pharmaceutical slash science background, it's very easy to say which dyslexia programs have randomized controlled trials that prove they're highly effective. And I don't know if you came across it, but we not only have randomized controlled trials on dyslexia, but I spent 10 more years doing empirical studies on the same Now Foundations program to rebuild reading skills that were lost after brain damage called stroke. And there we don't call it dyslexia, we call it phonological alexia. You've lost the reading skills and there's physical brain damage on the left side. And I'm happy to say that when I ended that career of stroke research, we were 70% successful, either rewiring the right side of the brain to take over reading skills, or there was still enough healthy brain tissue left around that language area, we could rewire the residual or leftover brain tissue to rebuild reading skills back on the left hemisphere. But for you, talking to many of the audience here who don't have the science background, how do you help parents choose between what's the right dyslexia program? What else would you share with them as might be an important thing to consider that we would hope more families will choose nowprograms.com because it's highly successful, but there's an extensive amount of competing programs.
There are a lot of programs out there. You're definitely right. And I think if I didn't have a science background, I think what I would really look at is I liked all the different options that Now had. So you could do the small group classes, you could do one-on-one, you could do like even smaller groups. So I really liked that. And I liked how transparent Now was with the pricing and with the commitment, because it is a big commitment to commit to doing something 5 days a week, every day at the same time. It felt really hard. I was like, how are we going to do this? And at first he started doing it at school, which worked out well, and the school supported him with that. But when we moved, it's not that I didn't want the school to know, but I just wanted him to have a fresh start.
Yeah, which is good.
I didn't want anyone to have any possibly negative associations with what he was able to do. So then we transitioned it to home. So I think to know that it is incredibly helpful. And if it's a family like ours that's having trouble with getting the school to support doing something different and supporting their student to be successful, it can be really hard to start looking at different places to go. But I liked how it was the flexibility with Now. There was quite a few times we had to reschedule something and it was never a problem because schedules change. Things come up. There's field trips at school. You go on vacation. So just knowing that the Now programs will really work with you to make sure you're meeting your goals. And like when all of a sudden Jacob wasn't doing what he was supposed to, no one was afraid to tell me. Or if he wasn't paying attention in class, his Now professor would send me a text, be like, hey, can you come in here? Because Jacob is not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So there was constant communication. It wasn't like I had no idea what was happening.
Super. And did you ever watch any of the sessions yourself?
I did sometimes towards the end. In the beginning, he really didn't want anyone to be there because I don't know if he was embarrassed because it felt strange, like you said, doing just like the mouth movements. He was like, I don't want anyone to watch me do this.
Yeah, it's a little silly, Mom. Get out of here.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like the Pied Piper at my house. So if I go somewhere, usually my smallest entourage follows me, which he really doesn't like. So we give him a lot of privacy to do it, but occasionally he'd call me in or I would just take a peek if things sounded like, I'm not sure what's happening in there. I would just take a look. But for the most part, I think in the beginning and in the middle, he really wanted to do it by himself. But towards the end, when he felt really successful and he was doing a great job, he'd be like, hey, watch me. Look what I can do.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kim, thanks again for your time and for sharing this powerful story of Jacob's dyslexia didn't define Jacob. Now Jacob doesn't struggle to read and spell. Now Jacob wrote a book and he's selling it on Amazon. Yeah, we're going to want to do a press release about that because not many kids with dyslexia go actually do the writing themselves. There's others who use technology, but he didn't use technology. He used his hand or the typing or working with mom and dad to do the editing, and literally has changed his trajectory of his self-esteem because his competence went up and his
Mhm.
confidence came right along with it. So thanks again
Exactly.
for the time, and we're so happy for the outcomes, and we appreciate you helping share Jacob's story with others. For your youngest, if you don't know,
Mhm.
we've built an app, and the
Hmm.
app is for 3 to 6 year olds, and it's got this crazy name. It's on the screen now. It's called Lip Letterland, and if you go to lipletterland.com, that Now Foundations program has like about 10 sections that we have to cover. But
Mhm.
Lip Letterland just does like 2 of the 10 sections, and it's only for 3 to 6 year olds. And they learn about their mouth and what their mouth is
Hmm.
doing, and what it sounds like, and what it looks like, and what it feels like, and what's a lip popper, and what's a tongue tapper, and what's a tongue scraper, all that kind of silly stuff that Jacob did in the beginning. We know that if we get 3, 4, 5, and 6 year olds doing that now, they're more likely not to struggle to read and not to struggle to spell. So we now are launched in the Apple Store, and I'm happy to say, after 6 months of fighting with them, we're finally launched in the Google Store as well. And so consider that a possibility. Of It's also for enrichment. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean the child has to be struggling. We want to make sure they don't struggle, and that's why we built Lip Letterland as another tool for families to have access to.
Excellent. No, I'll definitely check it out. She's going into kindergarten this year, and I know you're going to learn to read. So
There you go.
we're always looking for different ways to help our kids.
Well, and it's the whopping $6.99 a month. So
Oh,
it's not a high dollar app. It's what we
yeah.
call the. I'll give credence to Mr. Schwab, the Charles Schwab model of do
Hmm.
something with a low profit margin, but then try to sell a whole bunch of it. And that's our
Exactly.
goal. And then we generate scholarship funds off the app as well to help provide partial scholarships to families who may not be able to afford even the lowest price.
Hmm.
And now Foundations program and that nowprograms.com, it's as low as $30 an hour. And
Hmm.
there's very few dyslexia programs available at $30 an hour. And there's none but ours available backed by 3 5-year randomized control trials. So we're happy to have this success story. Happy to have you sharing it. And please tell Jacob our best congratulations. And I bought 10 copies of the book, and we're going to
He
be
will be
sharing it with
thrilled.
some of his instructors and some of his staff that helped him as well. And we'll have a couple of copies in the Moore Center clinics for kids who come in to say, hey, look, a kid who did this Now Foundations program wrote a book. You could do it too.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. We've really appreciated the whole experience and to share a story.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Well, that's it for this edition of Dyslexia Success Stories. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And Jacob can watch this and tell us how we did, Mom. Okay?
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Bye bye, everyone.